Namaskar, everybody. Hope this is a nice evening for you all. Um, Today, thanks for responding to the invite and enrolling in this special and unique program. And I'll just take maybe a minute or minute and a half to explain the purpose, so there is clarity there. I am Rajiv Verma. On behalf of Hindu Heritage Foundation of America, I invite you to this special Hindu Heritage Teacher Training Program. The purpose of this program is to train teachers in Sunday schools, as well as community leaders in expression of Hindu heritage topics. There are well over now, 1,100 temples in the US, and each one of them is running some kind of an education program. And as it is often seen, some temples may be better off, but by and large, the parents of the kids who are going into this program, they are the volunteer teachers. And there is a lack of structured training at this level, at this Hindu heritage, in Hindu heritage topics. So what happens usually is, if a parent volunteers,
joined the meeting.
They will Google search the subject. The first link they will find, they will download, copy paste in their PowerPoint, and then try to present that in the class. On the other hand, we have many temples, because the availability of subject matter experts, they are doing a much better job. So the idea of this program is that to institute some kind of a unique kind of a teacher training program, where you get to get this training from those who have already made a tremendous amount of effort into teacher training. And it is indeed a pleasure, and I take personal pride in presenting Sri Vishal Agrawal to you. Most of you already know him. But he is an author, columnist, thinker. He has been a co-activist of mine for the last 25 years now, and he has put in a great amount of effort into the study of Hindu Dharma. And it is indeed a privilege for all of us to be trained by him, especially because at his local temple in Minnesota, he has put in a great deal of effort, and those from Minnesota will testify to that. And he's a very popular figure. You can Google him and you can see his intellectual output. And I believe he has a library of maybe 1,000 books plus, and that itself will tell you the intellectual depth. So we are here without taking too much of your time. Please get into, and I urge you to get this training so that you can express yourself correctly in Hindu heritage topics. So over to you, Vishal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rajiv ji. That was quite a flattering. Introduction. And so I'm going to share some slides, and that's how we will initiate our discussion today. Let me just share my slide, and then you let me know if you can see the slide. Can you all see my slide?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Okay. So first of all, Om and Namaste to everyone. And I'd like to start by recalling an example that the Shvetashvatar Upanishad gives, that, let us be a lamp of knowledge, and with our flame, we should try to light, many other lamps. And so the purpose of this teacher's training is to actually, you know, explore how all of us can be lamps of Dharma, and how we can transmit that valuable treasure that we have inherited from our ancestors. So, you might be saying, why am I here? And first of all, I think we Hindus are big complainers. We are perpetually in a complaining mode. We hear complaints like the media always distorts our traditions. Well, nobody likes to be around an extremely negative person. So this is an attempt for all of us to take charge. The second thing I hear is, and like Rajiv ji mentioned, we Hindus have constructed over 1,000 mandirs here in the United States. But how many of them really, run schools to teach about our Dharma? So about a decade back, when I went to Houston, I was told that Houston has close to 30 mandirs, but maybe 3 or 4 of them have active teaching programs, and that was very disappointing for me to hear about. Learn about that. In reality, if we say that it's very difficult to understand and teach Dharma, there is nothing's easy in life, and there are really no shortcuts to nirvana. I mean, think about it. We spend 16 years in school, and then we spend 4 years in college, and then we might spend even more time. And that all that effort and money is input to earn our bread and butter. But are we willing to spend even a fraction of that effort in understanding our Dharma and teaching about it? So I do understand that the Hindu Dharma is like an ocean. It's very difficult to reach the other shore, understand our Dharma completely. But the purpose of this training, which extends over several weeks, is to provide you with those tools that you can further use. You can even modify and adapt them and use them to teach our children and even adults. But the attitude with which we should do this task is not like we are doing a favor on someone. It's for our own self purification. So in this training, you will see me, or you'll hear me using a lot of terms from our scriptures and our tradition, and also give examples from the lives of many rishis and gurus and acharyas. So one of the teachings of our scriptures is that there are actually 4 stages of learning. And right now we are only at the first stage, which is, hearing to a teacher and studying under him or her. So that's called the Shravan or Adhyayan. After the class is over, I would like all of us to reflect upon what we've heard or what we've discussed in the class, and then come next time to ask questions, or you can even put your questions in the chat box of the Zoom meeting. And then interestingly, our Shastras also say that the 3rd stage of learning is actually to teach others. So why I want to emphasize is that I am not doing a favor upon you by sharing what I know. I'm doing a favor on myself to, by teaching you, because you will probably come up with many new perspectives and questions, which will help me learn more. So having been a teacher earlier at the Chinmay Mission, we were told about an example that Swami Tejomayanandji used to give. And he said that when you go to a well of water and you pull out a bucket of water and you pour it over yourself to take a bath, that water eventually flows out away, and it also waters the different plants. Now, what your purpose was not really to water the plants. You actually purified yourself, and watering of the plants is only a side effect. So when you really teach others, you are the one who really benefits a lot. But the 4th stage is the culmination of your learning, and that's prayog and nididhyasan. So these are terms which say that we must apply what we learn, and we must experience the knowledge that we've acquired. Otherwise, it stays at the stage of just information. The best teacher teaches by example. And that's what I try to tell all the parents, that if for you, bringing your child to a Sunday school for 2 or 3 hours on the weekend is just kind of to pass on the buck, to outsource Dharma education. But if you are not demonstrating the values of dharma through your day-to-day life, then it's all a waste, because everyone learns more easily by examples. The fourth reason why that I'd like to emphasize is that um, once we understand our dharma, we realize that it's really the greatest treasure that we have. A lot of our community members are ashamed of our heritage. And a lot of that shame is actually because of their ignorance. And, Archana ji and Kaustubh ji, who are also co-teachers in our school, and they are in the audience, they can probably also attest to the fact that a lot of our parents and students upon attending the Dharma classes, come back and tell us that we never realized how much beauty there was in our, Dharma. And so it draws them more and more towards this treasure that we have, but over which, it's a treasure that's kind of, again, to quote an example from the Chandogya Upanishad, we behave like an ignorant person and we walk over the same ground day after day, not realizing that buried under that ground is a great treasure. So that's what our dharma is. But if we don't teach our dharma to others, and if people get alienated, they become lost to us, or if they even convert to other religions, then, like Swami Vivekanand ji said, that a lost or a converted Hindu is an enemy gained, and we certainly don't want that to happen. So there are all these reasons and many other reasons. There's actually, if a temple starts an education program, it greatly increases the footprint, the footfall into the temple. And if you're in sales and marketing, you would know that there are different customer segments, and you have to offer a product which attracts those different, segments. You have to offer different products. So people who might not be very interested in performing, pujas and archanas will nevertheless come to the temple with their children if there's an educational program for dharma and language. So there are many other, other benefits to institutions when they want to start a class. So what exactly is our considerations when I started devising this course? There are many curriculums available there, and what I felt was that maybe out of 1,000 Hindus, maybe one Hindu becomes a sannyasi. But in a lot of the curriculums, and I'm not going to name them, the perspective of a sannyasi was privileged over that of a grihastha. And I'm not saying that there's a conflict between, too much conflict between a householder's duties and a sannyasi's duties, but the focus and emphasis is different. When we are teaching, say, the value of forgiveness to our children, but if my child is bullied in the school, I just cannot ask him to suck up that bullying every day. That's going to harm his self-esteem. So from a householder's perspective, there would be other solutions to that problem. So in these teaching modules, I have tried to focus on the householder's perspectives of the Hindu Dharma, because after all, we people who live a regular, family life represent more than 99% of the Hindu community. Then secondly, what you will notice me is taking examples from the teachings of many, many different gurus and acharyas. I follow my own sampradaya, but every Hindu has a different sampradaya. They have their own traditions of worshiping, of, different, slightly different beliefs. And so the curriculum is deliberately designed to be extremely eclectic. Now, that does not mean that there is nothing called Hindu Dharma. Some people say, oh, there's so much variety and diversity within Hindu Dharma that you cannot even define it. But I would say that Hindu Dharma is like an Indian buffet, which can have, say, 1,000 dishes. And if a family of 4 goes to the Indian buffet, you cannot eat all the dishes in the buffet. The dad might pick up 15 dishes of his choice, and take a sample from those 15 dishes. The mom might try another 20 samples. The son might try another 5 samples, and the daughter might try another 25 samples. But in most of those dishes, there will be certain ingredients which occur again and again, like the grains, the wheat, rice, milk products, sugar. So if you pick up any 10 or 20 dishes from the buffet, the chances are that they will contain these commonly widespread ingredients like, turmeric, haldi, is very high. So in this class, that is what I'm going to focus on, the common basis of all our sampradayas, which constitute, our Hindu Samaj, our Hindu Dharma. And the third issue I've noticed is, and I'll give an example, when I first started teaching teenagers about more than 12 years back, in a class on the student stage of one's life, I asked the students, what do your parents tell you about dating? And everybody said, well, my parents told me that this is not a part of our culture, so we won't have any discussion on it. And so, we cannot just hide or push these matters under the rug. Our children, especially if you're living in the United States, they have a very different upbringing than what we had. And things are changing a lot, even in India or Nepal or Pakistan or wherever you're from. And the countries we left behind 30 years back or 20 years back are very different today than what they were when we left them. So it is very important for us to give a Hindu perspective on these matters, because if we don't provide answers to our children, they will find their own answers, and those answers might not be to our liking. So we also have to address matters of relevance. The reality that our children are growing up in is very accepting of alternate lifestyles, of gay marriages. And so those are also issues that we need to address. And so week after week, as we discuss different topics from the perspective of Hindu Dharma, we will be addressing these issues. The fourth thing I kept in mind is that if you go to, say, a bookshop, you will find a lot of books on Hinduism written by people who are from outside of our tradition. And most of the time, they do a very shoddy job of presenting our tradition. So there is a conflict between what we call the emic or insider perspective of Dharma and etic or outsider perspective of Dharma. And in this class, in this series of discussions, my approach will be solidly grounded in our shastras or our scriptures or sacred, texts, on our actual traditional practices, our traditions, beliefs, and experiences. So non-Hindu distorted versions will be ignored. We will address them only when we want to respond to them. And so the material that I will provide to you will be very exhaustive. Rajiv ji has set up a Google Classroom website, and after this class, in a couple of days, I will be uploading all this material. All this material is free. And then I will also provide you with links which have textbooks that you can use for children of different age groups. So everything is free. And if you have any material that you'd like to share with the larger group, that'll be wonderful. Now, one thing that I would really like to keep out of these discussions is modern divisive political discussions or very demeaning and insulting remarks about other traditions within Hinduism or other religions. They really don't serve any purpose. And, like I said, we are here to study about the common basis of the Hindu Dharma and not participate in political discussions. So this will be the general format of the class. We will start with a few mantras and shlokas. If you don't know how to chant them, just keep in mind that when we chant them week after week, eventually you will learn. Probably after the fourth or fifth class, you will, get to memorize the melody and the wording of some of these common mantras and shlokas that we will be chanting. Mostly these mantras and shlokas will be the same from week to week, but whenever we are around a special festival, like say Janamashtami or Ganesh Chaturthi, then I will make it a point to add a shloka pertaining to that particular Devi or Devata. So after the opening prarthana, we will summarize the contents of the previous class and link it to the present day's teaching. Then there will be the main body of instruction. and I would really encourage discussions, Q&As, and quizzes. And I'm still trying to think out how to manage this because, for example, today we have 58 participants. And so we just don't want that we have a lot of crosstalk and people talking over each other and derailing the class, but we will figure it out. So the class is about 1 hour, 15 minutes long, and I would like to devote at least the last 15 minutes to questions and discussions, exchange of ideas, or sometimes I will have interesting, quizzes, which we can all review one after the other. What I don't believe in is giving you required homework. You need to be self-driven, self-motivated. Like I mentioned, the second stage of learning is manan. So, once we upload the materials, go over it and think about it. If you have any questions, let's discuss them over. And if you have been a teacher in any school, we would love to exchange the teaching strategies. And then after that, we'll have a closing prarthana. And like I mentioned that all these materials will be uploaded to the Google Classroom's website. So some of you sent a message asking, what's the curriculum? And so it's a very comprehensive curriculum. Today is the 21st of July. And after these introductory slides, I will quickly go over a pretty large, actually, slide deck. But like I said, you will have to learn a lot by self-study also. And that'll explain that'll list the major concepts of Dharma. So if you are doing a temple tour to visitors, or if you are ever asked to present, say in a high school here in the United States or anywhere, if you're asked to present an overview of Hindu Dharma, then that slide deck is something that you can modify and use easily. So the purpose of this class is to provide you with all these materials that you can edit and adapt to your end. Then, we always want to start on a positive note. So the next class next week would be on all the gifts that we Hindus have provided to humanity. Now, one thing I would like to emphasize is that there is a whole ton of literature available outside, and some of that literature is actually in the realm of fantasy. There's a lot of literature which will even talk about that how ancient Hindus had nuclear reactors and all that kind of stuff. But in my class, I would like to be more reasonable, and I'd like to focus on things which can be verified by methods which are close to scientific methods. I personally have been in science and technology all of my life, and so I'm not going to veer into this realm of fantasy. But what you will find is that even what you learn in this class is so fascinating that you don't really have to seek recourse to all these fantastical ideas. The reality, as I say, truth is stranger than fiction. So what you will realize is that the truth of Hindu Dharma, our heritage and history, our teachings, our values is so fantastic that you don't have to seek refuge in any other fantasy. So, we will veer on to a study of our major sacred scriptures, our shastras, our sacred languages. Then we will go on to the concept of dharma and karma. What does dharma mean and how is it linked to karma? What is pap and punya? Now, like I mentioned that, everything will be taught from an insider's perspective. And so I will be contrasting, say pap is not sin and punya is not virtue always. So we will be looking at those differences, and I would really encourage you to develop a vocabulary of these dharmic terms and popularize them. So by the end of these 36 classes, the goal is that we can come to a list of about 100 terms which are from the dharmic tradition and which we want to popularize. Some of them are already very popular, like karma, yoga. So, but there are many other terms that we want to popularize. So, then we will go over, as you can see, there are several orange rows in the curriculum, and these are the breaks. Now, the curriculum is kind of front loaded in the sense that our first break is after 6 classes, and then there are another 5 classes. But after that, The goal is to have a break at least after every 4 classes. So you can see the curriculum is very, very comprehensive, and it'll cover it'll cover aspects of dharma, of our adhyatma or our spirituality, of our society, of our traditions, and then finally, when we go towards the end of the course, there will be a lot of discussion on what today we distinguish between the secular and the sacred. Whereas Hindu Dharma is a complete civilization. So we Hindus have our own tradition and perspective on mathematics, on history, on science, medicine, psychology, arts, architecture. We even have shastras on different sports. We have our own notions of what the government should be like, and what should be the subjects of the law courts. What is Hindu economics? So these topics will take a big chunk of the last third of the class. Now, there will be some other, there's this class on Hindu symbolism, and that's been deliberately put at the end because you need to first understand the concepts, and then you can, when you look at, why is lotus a sacred flower? Why are all our Devi Devtas shown on a lotus or with a lotus? So after you've learned all those concepts, and then when we talk about the symbolism, you'll automatically understand, why do we show a snake when we are talking about a kundalini? So that's why the symbolism class is kept at the end. I did mention that we don't permit insult to other religions, but at the same time, we are living in a global village. The world is a global village. There are many other competing and cooperating sacred traditions in the world. There are many other secular traditions. And so what is the Hindu view of other religious traditions, and how do we compare to them? And so that's something we'd like to discuss. The Another thing that we will discuss is that right now a lot of people think that to be a Hindu, if you're a Hindu, you're necessarily from India, and if you're an Indian, you must be a Hindu. And that's not true. Hindu influences, and actually even Hindus are found all over the world. So that's another topic that I'd like to cover. And then at the very end, we will take a deep dive into certain very interesting topics. What is the Hindu perspective on, say, abortion, or vegetarianism, or animal rights, or, like I mentioned, LGBTQ lifestyles. Um, so coming to who the instructors are, I mean, right now, today, you're stuck with me. I don't like to talk too much about myself, but essentially, I live with my wife and 2 children in Minnesota. And I mentioned earlier, one of my children, my son, is currently pursuing his internship in the Bay Area. And then my daughter is here, she's in high school. And practically my entire career has been in the health and hygiene industry, specifically the medical devices industry. And by education, I have a master's in engineering and an MBA. But I have been a student of Dharma since I was a teenager. And the story is very interesting. Our local Mandir library in New Delhi had a great collection of books on chemistry, which was my favorite subject. So in the 10th or 11th grade, I would read chemistry books like people love to read comic books or fiction books. Now, interestingly, that library also had a big collection of books on Dharma. And so one evening, I turned the wrong way and I picked up some books on Hindu Dharma. And that kind of opened my eyes that there's so much wealth, knowledge. And so I've been a student of Dharma for more than 30 years now. And since I mentioned I was a teenager then, you can like guess my age. I have taught hundreds of students, teenagers, mainly teenagers, and sometimes adults, starting in 2009 at the local Chinmay mission. And then in 2012, there was another school that I've been associated with it. On the Dharma, activism, and volunteering, I have been associated with the Hindu American Foundation. I'm on their advisory board. I'm on the local Mandir board, and I serve also on various interfaith organizations. And Then I'm also a volunteer for a recently founded Hindu Speakers Bureau, which is doing a fabulous job also. Now, there will be other teachers who will join us from time to time. The goal is to get people who are experts in their areas. For example, I don't think I'm an expert when it comes to meditation and pranayam. So we do have experts, local experts, and I'll be approaching them to take those particular sessions. And it's also good because that adds variety. You don't want to see the same face every week. One of the gentlemen who's already agreed is Neeraj Mohanka. He will probably take on a lot of classes after January. And then Mona ji has also offered to teach one of the classes. And so it'll be really exciting to have these different instructors. So before I open up for questions and answers, I mentioned that we need to start all of our classes with a prarthana. And so the most widely chanted mantra in the Hindu Dharma is the Gayatri Mantra. And this translation at the bottom is by one of the founders of our local mandir. So when I chant the mantra, it would be good if you can also, if you know how to chant it, you can also chant it at your end. Or you can just follow the meaning and read it. Om Bhurбhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We always start a dharmic activity with an invocation to Bhagwan Ganesh. And so I have a shlok here for Bhagwan Ganesh also. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. And then in Hindu traditions, Ma Saraswati, Mother Saraswati is the Devi of education, wisdom, and arts. So we always remember her before starting our learning and education sessions. Om Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. So, and then in our tradition, there is also a prayer which is jointly uttered by the teacher and the students. And so this is from the Yajurveda. And it's a beautiful prayer. It calls for cooperation between the teacher and the student, a loving relationship with them, between them. And it also, asks Bhagwan that the knowledge that they're sharing and knowledge which is flowing should illuminate everyone's minds, and that it should promote love and not hatred. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So at this point of time, before I jump into the first lesson, I think we can probably address any questions that you might have or any comments. But keep in mind, we only have maybe 10 minutes because then we'd like to jump into the main topic. So I'll stop sharing right now and I will unmute all of you here. Rajiv ji, can you tell me how to unmute others? Okay, so if you want to, if you have any comment or questions, please unmute yourself and raise the question that you might have.
What is the purpose of this session?
So the purpose of this particular session is to give an overview of what our approach is going to be. And then after 5 or 10 minutes, I will give an overview of the major concepts of Hindu Dharma. which kind of lays out the framework of the whole, syllabus as such.
Will we have a test also? आप
No,
हमारी परीक्षा भी लेंगे?
life is the biggest test. There is no test right now, but off and on, I'll be having quizzes and we'll work on them together.
Yeah, I have a question. So we'll also get something like, throughout the week we can research on and then share every Wednesday. Is there something like that, or we just need to listen?
Definitely. So
Okay.
there is a Google Classroom that has been set up by Rajiv Ji. And all these materials will be uploaded there. There will be suggestions for further reading. Some of them will be book titles and some of them will be links to books which are available online. So for each class, you can research yourself, and then if you have any questions, you can raise them at the beginning of the next class.
And will we have practical sessions like we able to teach, like, because I've been teaching in schools for years together, and
Yeah.
I've taught international languages, the Hindi, and I did teach them some mantras and everything, because officially it's not allowed to talk about religion. So I told them it's not religion, it's a way of living. So anyway, but we should have some practical application too.
Yeah, so having practical sessions over Zoom is kind of a little challenging. So the mantras, we will learn how to chant a lot of the shlokas, but there are certain topics which are experiential, which are practical by their very nature. For example, when we talk about meditation and pranayam,
Mhm.
then obviously, that is something that an expert in those areas will guide us through those sessions. I was actually wondering if we could also have a session on our food habits, our culinary skill. So there are a lot of different sessions which can be very interactive and practical, keeping in mind that this is all being done over Zoom. If we were meeting in person in a brick and mortar building, then it would be a totally different ballgame.
I understand that, but if the kids could be involved with us, like especially the theory of karma and all those, some aspects of very important aspects of our,
Yes,
that
yes.
would really, really be very, because young minds can have long-lasting
So
impressions.
what I can do is, so as I these classes, I can guide you to resources where you will have ideas on classroom activities, and especially with little children, you
Okay.
can spend more than 1/4 or 1/3 of the class on a lecture. Most of the class should be on hands-on activities. So and so that's the purpose of this class. In this class we are all adults, so it's not required that we need to make a crown or we have to make a, but that is something, I will send you the links with directions on how that can be done. So there are 2 questions in the chat box here. So I and my wife both registered, but we joined in using the same login. And that is totally fine because you're husband and wife. So you're really one Atma in 2 different bodies. So that's fine. If for any reason we missed the recorded and available, definitely. So that's the whole point, that the recording will be available. And you can see it, and you have the curriculum with you, the sequence of the topics. If there is a topic that does not interest you, you can skip it. There is no attendance being taken. There is no extra grade for attending all the classes. So Urmil ji, you've raised your hand. Would you like to ask?
Actually, next time I will change. It's a Bridge Sharma. What I wanted to ask you is that at my temple, I have been doing it for 2 years. The most kind of, there are few students who kind of, come from very learned families, and they have been kind of exposed to this. I'm not able to completely answer their questions in a way that who started Hinduism, right? Just like somebody mentioned earlier, Hinduism is not a sampradaya, it's a kind of, way of life, right? And also who wrote Vedas. And I know that people generally, when they look at the deities, they ask many questions like multiple limbs, I know, the Ganeshji riding. So this symbolism. So I did get some books, from Amazon in India on some of these to kind of, like bindi log kyun lagate hain, right? As cheez. But the thing is that even if you Google them, right? Sometimes I'm not able to answer questions. So I'll try to educate myself through other resources and try to provide them answer next time.
Yeah.
But then when I Google or something, I get many different answers.
Yeah.
So yeah, the reason of my joining this course is to kind of, get some questions which I'm not able to answer those, get a better wording or some way I can put them in a better way to make so that people understand.
So that's the main, one of the main goals of this class is to point you to resources which are first of all credible, because like you said, Google, you get a lot of weird and wrong answers, very poorly worded. So so as an example, the Hindu Speakers Bureau has written answers in a very nice language for many of these different questions. So, if you can send me the questions, as a part of the weekly update, I can provide you with those links where you can find very nicely worded answers in a very concise language.
Vishalji, this is Anjali. If you don't mind, can I just give a two-liner answer to this, the beginning of Hinduism?
Definitely.
Thank you. So, sorry, I didn't catch your name, you who asked this question, but where did Hinduism start? It started when in the beginning, when civilization started, our ancient rishis, they try to find the answer as to what makes a person happy and what makes a person unhappy. It is just as simple as that. And what they realize that by following a certain way of life and by having God realization as your goal of life, if you there's a certain path that you can follow, which will help to enhance your evolution, and ultimately you will be happy, healthy in every aspect of your life. That was the beginning of Hinduism. So our rishis were great psychologists, scientists, and it is basically leading us, anything that leads us from sorrow to happiness. That is all that religion is all about, and that is all that Hinduism teaches. How to, because everybody wants to be happy, nobody wants to be sad.
So
All it does,
so Swami Chinmayanand and Swami Vivekanand ji have given very nice answers. Swami Chinmayanand ji said, well, who invented gravitation? It was not invented, it was discovered. So Hindu Dharma, is a collection of very eternal divine principles that were discovered by our rishis. So if you at all have to answer who founded our religion, it's of divine origin. And the rishis, who were very spiritually elevated individuals, they discovered and they taught about those eternal divine principles. So we don't have a human finder like Buddha or anyone else, because we are divine. Our religion, our faith is divine in origin, and it has no beginning. It was only discovered or brought to light by realized souls who we call rishi. So I see a hand by Abhishek Bansal ji also.
Yeah, Vishalji, namaskar, and thank you for this such a noble initiative. I just had a question. So, like you mentioned, that we do crafts for the younger ones, which are typically elementary or younger elementary. We also teach, as some part of a Sunday school, we also teach middle and high school students. And we always brainstorm or try to learn ideas of engaging them, whether it's just different kind of icebreakers or making them present and so on. So I'd be certainly looking for tools to make this, tools to create a format for teenagers to learn. And that's been one of our challenges.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as a group here, we can exchange ideas. And different age groups have different requirements. If you make a 15-year-old teenager spend all the time in crafts activities, they will think that you're insulting them. And so there is a different, focus for different age groups. And then it's very counterproductive to mix children of very widely varying ages. If you mix in a class, if you mix a 5-year-old with a 12-year-old, the 12-year-old will stop coming the next week onwards. So that is why it is very important to have an age appropriate curriculum and a very graded curriculum. So this week I will send you a list. Chinmay Mission has a graded curriculum. The Purna Vidya has an extremely good graded curriculum. Right. And then here in our temple also we have a very graded curriculum. And all those books are freely downloadable as PDFs. So that's another option. So we will all exchange. And so now I see Sri Dharanji has raised his hand. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Vishalji, this is Sridharan. My question was, if for any reason we are not able to attend a particular class, we miss the class. So is there a way to go back and then listen to the talk?
The recording will be available, and all the materials will be posted in the Google Classroom website. So you can always go back and refer to them. So I'll just take 2 more questions. And so one is from Pallavi Pal.
Okay.
Namaskar. Thank you, Vishalji, for taking this initiative and getting us together. A little bit about myself. I've been teaching classes of this kind for the past close to 20 years. And my challenge, I find it challenging to reach out to the teenagers. So some of the children who I usually take them at about 6 years, first grade level. And I've been following the Vedic Heritage Teaching Program, which has become the Purna Vidya now. Yeah. So ever since then, the kids who have started from the beginning, it's a graded program, as you said, they have no problem when they are up about 15 years. I mean, like middle school, high school, the transition is easy. But there are parents who come to know about it later on, and they want their kids to have a foundation. They tell me that I want them to learn something about our religion, our culture. And that is when I find them challenging. I cannot go back and start them from Ramayana because they have probably watched some of them. But when I ask them, because Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavatam, these things, when they do it from the basics, that gives them the value structure, which is. And when they come to me at that age as a teenager, I neither can go back totally to those stories. Again, at the same time, I cannot move on to those topics like values, Ishvara, religious disciplines, the ones like religious culture. Those are, again, they're age appropriate, but they are not ready. Yeah. So I am looking for this from this course or from this thing, how can I more effectively connect to those kids who are coming at that stage without having the background? If you all have some ideas, I would love to share.
That's a very common problem. Sometimes the parents themselves wake up very late, and by the time their child is 14,
and,
teenager tantrums, and all of a sudden they want their children to learn.
Exactly.
So what we have done is, we require, say a student comes at the age of 14, which is the 8th standard or 8th grade. So we require the student to attend one teenager class at least for 1 year as a student. So then, they go to the 9th grade. So they have 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 4 more years in high school. So after that, we don't make them a student. We put them as a teenager volunteer in a different Dharma class. Now that serves multiple purposes. One is that they need volunteering hours. In the American school system, every high school student needs to clock in some volunteering hours. So it automatically creates a mechanism for them. And so the adult teacher assigns them specific duties that you have to summarize the lesson and send an update to the parents every week. So that's how we rotate these teenagers in different classes. And so even if we get them pretty late, 15, 14 or 15, by the time they go to college, they had an exposure of 4 and so
Okay.
we've had some very spectacular turnaround stories. There was a student whose parents started bringing him when he was late in the 7th grade. And after just a few months, his parents came and told us that he's been so impacted and transformed. And this student then stayed on as a volunteer teacher till the 12th grade. And even after some of them go to colleges, they come back during the summertime and help us with the classes. So that's one strategy. The second one is that you need to start a teenager club in your temple. So in our temple, we have a teenager club called HYMN, HYMN, Hindu Youth of Minnesota. Now their activities are a little bit around our traditions, but they are not classroom studying or teaching. So we asked them to organize, help in decorating around, say, Navaratri, or help us in organizing the Holi program. So they work in tandem with the younger, with the school. So for example, around the Holi program, we asked them to help out with putting up the Holika fire and arrange for music and colors. So that helps them get engaged in their culture in a way that they would want to. And so I know some of you will be shocked at this, but just getting teenagers to the temple, if they have not been there, is a challenge. And so when you bring teenagers to the temple, the goal is not, you shouldn't aim at getting them to the mandir and so that they can chant the aartis and pujas, but the very fact, if the teenagers come for some reason or the other to the temple week after week or month after month, their mind will have memories of their association with the temple. So now you will be shocked at it that we actually even asked the teenager club here to organize, I know it's not a good thing to say, but a Bollywood night, but and they're asked to come in their traditional Indian clothing. So since they are organizing that program in the temple, they understand what the maryada of the temple is. They cannot play vulgar, obscene songs in the temple. So they imbibe that, our value system. And then, they come in our traditional clothing. And then these events, typically we invite a Panditji to inaugurate the event, with a short puja. So they get an exposure to that. So there you have to be creative and see what your teenagers are looking at. And once they come, for these events, maybe 40, 50 times before they go to college, they will remember them. And even when they come to their hometown from college, they will definitely try to come to the temple. So you want to have teenagers develop some pleasant memories of their associations with the temple. And it's not necessarily by making them sit in a classroom as a student. So
just the last thing I want to mention is we only recently had our temple, but even before temple, we had this class I have been doing. I used to do it in my home itself, starting with my 2 boys. The thing is, now I am doing it totally Zoom. From last year, I have totally, all my classes have gone Zoom now. So that is a little bit of a different situation. So I'll definitely be looking up for this platform so that I can get information and experiences shared from others who may be doing Zoom too.
So, definitely reach out to us. And so this is giving me ideas on what to upload for reference. The teenagers are a very challenging group. I have a teenager daughter myself.
Yes.
I've just been out of the teenage years. But, I can say for my son that he's very, very firmly grounded in our tradition now. And he's very comfortable in his heritage. It's a very difficult battle, but we have to win it. So just one more question, Kaustav, if you would like to ask or comment.
Yes, thank you, Vishalji. And I don't have a question. I just have a comment and a big thank you to you for doing this. This is very much was needed. And just as a passing remark or comment, I know Vishalji for last 10 years. He is one of the founders of the local school here in Minnesota. And I'm sure everyone who joining this session will benefit with the knowledge that Vishal brings. And thank you once again, Vishal, for doing this. Very much looking forward to all the sessions and learning this, more and more from you.
So am I. So I mean, all these conversations only emphasize that we all have similar issues to deal with. And so there's a lot we can learn from each other. So I'll quickly jump over. And, like I mentioned, a big part of this curriculum.
Vishal, I'm sorry to interrupt very quickly. Some of the people that I have shared the information, I got late last night. I signed up. This is Prabhat. Hopefully recognize my voice. Some people might join, let's say, later in between because they haven't seen the notice yet. Are they allowed to join in between anywhere? I think you are flexible.
They can join anytime they want, and they can leave anytime they want, and they can watch the video recording and consult other materials whenever they want. We are
Thank
all.
you.
We are all.
I didn't want to take too much of time here. Thank you.
All right. So now I will start sharing the other.
Thank you, Vishalji. Nagarajan here.
I'm going to mute all of you again. And then we will quickly browse through the next, it's a pretty long slide deck. So I'm not going to cover even 10% of it. And I'm just going to, go over the major contents of it. So let me share my screen here. Can you all see my screen?
Not yet.
Coming up.
Okay.
It's still loading.
All right. So, like we mentioned, Hindu Dharma is like an ocean, or it's like a giant Indian buffet. But, if you pick up any 10 dishes at random, there's a big chance that something will have turmeric in it, something might have rice in it. So there are many common bases of Hindu Dharma. And so this slide deck is not something that I'm going to read out to you, but it's a reference material that you can use for your own temple tours, or if somebody in your high school wants you to do a class on Hindu Dharma, you can easily adapt it, shorten it. And remember that in schools, they don't allow you to proselytize, they don't want you to convert. And so this slide deck is made similarly, and this is a good, reference material that you can send to others. The one thing that they are looking for when you go to high schools is they want a lot of these learning tools like the pie charts, the timelines, and the maps. And so if your material that you're using doesn't have these tools, then the teachers are not very happy. So that's the reason why this slide deck has been designed in that particular manner. It's very ready to use if you go to different high schools. Now, like I mentioned, that although Hindus associate or non-Hindus associate Hinduism with India, in reality, our geographical spread, a core area is quite wide. It's only in recent decades where Hindus have largely shrunk into the borders of India and Nepal, but through immigration, again, we are spreading out all over the world. And we are the third largest tradition in the world. Every seventh human being is a Hindu. So when you look at, there's a World Meters website, which keeps a track of the population every second. So if there are 7 or 8 billion people in the world, you can do the math. More than 1 billion people in the world are Hindus. So this is a map taken from Hinduism Today. It's pretty outdated, but it shows how we are spread all over the world. So when we talk to our children, especially when they're born and raised in the United States, my recommendation would be not to keep harping upon India, 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 because they see other religions as global traditions. And if you keep telling them that Hinduism is only restricted to India, now that's not a very empowering teaching. And so they need to understand that they also belong to a very universal global tradition. And so many American examples from the American context should be given to them. Like we had Tulsi Gabbard, who was recently the presidential candidate. And whenever she has, entered the US Congress. She has taken her oath on a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Here in the United States, now we have entire sampradayas or traditions which have been founded by and which are led by people who are of non-Indian origin. In my own family, I have distant family members who are fourth generation immigrants. And some of them are actually only 1/4 Indian by blood, but they follow Hindu Dharma. So if we were to equate Hinduism to Indian in India, and tomorrow if your grandchildren are only 1/4 by blood by Indian, then are you going to say that they are not Hindus? No. So you have to distinguish between the two, even though there's a lot of overlap. This is an interesting slide that I got from a gentleman. And if you go to the Grand Canyon area, there are a lot of features which have Hindu names. And the reason is that one of the 4 explorers of this region was very well read in Hindu literature. And so he wanted to find some new names for these geographical features. So when I post this slide deck on the Google site, in the notes section of the slides, there will be a commentary which you can read. And so that'll help you understand the content of the slide. So there are many famous Hindu Americans. Julia Roberts, she's a very famous Hollywood actress. She became a Hindu while she was shooting for a movie, Love, Eat and Pray. The CNN doctor, Sanjay Gupta, everyone knows. There's a football player, Alfred Ford, who was a grandnephew of Henry Ford. So there are many, many Hindus around us, and we don't even know sometimes. At my own workplace, I had an Irish gentleman, and one day I was surprised to see that his screensaver was of Swami Prabhupada Bhakti Vedant. And then he told me that he was actually a Hare Krishna, which you couldn't have figured out. So there was a question on who founded Hindu Dharma. So again, we need to follow a pattern that our children are used to. When they go to school, they see things like timelines. So you have to tell them that if you have a timeline going back to 2000 BC, if you look at the bottom, then there are only 2 continuous religions which have survived till present times, the Hindu Dharma and Judaism. But if we were to go back further in 2500 BC, Judaism would drop off. And so Hindu Dharma is the most ancient, continuously practiced tradition in this world. There is no known human founder. It's like the eternal principles of physics and math, which were discovered, not invented by anyone. And every religion, these are again some slides. Again, we don't want to make baseless claims. Our children are very smart. So if you are going to tell them that, we had nuclear reactors in 5000 BC, they're just going to roll their eyes. So, but there are many other truthful, verifiable things like the practice of yoga. We have evidence from archaeology from 2500 BC. There is evidence of Shivlinga from 2400 BC, which proves that our tradition is really extremely ancient. The other question that people ask is, the Christians have the Bible and the Muslims have the Quran, and what do we Hindus have? And the answer to that is that we are not a religion of the book, we are a religion of the library. And the reason for that is there is so much wisdom in our Dharma that it cannot be captured within one book, between 2 covers. And so our rishis and our sages, they wrote these multiple books which people at different stages of their spiritual progress could read. It provided multiple paths. There's some people are emotional, some people are very rational. So for all of them, there are these different scriptures, holy books that we have. So to answer that question, we are a religion of the library with literally thousands of sacred scriptures. There are, between Hinduism and Buddhism, there are probably more sacred texts than all the other, faith traditions combined. However, if somebody were to learn about Hindu spirituality in summary, then the Bhagavad Gita is a great book. Now, so we will have one class devoted to the Vedas and Upanishads, one class devoted to the Bhagavad Gita and other Smritis, and one class devoted to the Puranas and the Mahabharata. So to explain that, so this is just like an overview of the architecture. So then people also ask, is Hinduism monotheistic or whether it is polytheistic? If you have been following the recent news, the Pew Foundation did a very extensive survey, and it questioned Hindus in villages, in cities. It questioned Hindus who were young, who were old, who were educated, who were not educated. And although a lot of people want to say that Hinduism is polytheistic, what the Pew Foundation found was that across all these boundaries of where people lived, what their age was, what their level of education was, of every 100 Hindus that they questioned, 90 Hindus said that there is only one Ishwar, there is only one Paramatma, but more than half of them also said that that one Paramatma or one supreme being can manifest in many different ways. So 90% Hindus agree that there is one divine being which can, and majority of them say that he can manifest in many, many different ways. 3% were atheists, and of the remaining 7% only said that Hinduism is a polytheistic religion. When those 7% were questioned, a lot of them admitted that they were not very knowledgeable about Hindu Dharma. So there you have the answer that, when we Hindus claim that we believe in one supreme divine power, we are not just trying to impress Christians and Muslims. That is what we are. But we have a distinction. We are not monotheistic where there is only one divine unit sitting in a heaven and remote controlling the whole universe. We believe that that one divinity is present inside everyone. It is outside everything, and it can manifest in many, many different ways. So when we are worshiping different Devi Devtas, there are different aspects of the same, divinity. And then, we'll discuss about what is Nirgun, Nirakar, Sagun, Sakar, Ishwar. And then somebody asked me, how do you explain symbolism? Like, what does Om mean? What is the meaning of Bindi? And so there are slides that, you can read, and we'll discuss that in more detail. Then we Hindus have a very scientific concept about the universe also. If you read our Darshan Shastras, they say that, Bhagwan has a role. He's the creator, but he created the universe out of pre-existing matter. So just like we say that energy and matter cannot be, they can interchange, but they cannot be completely destroyed. And that's very close to what the Hindu Dharma teaches. So when we come to this section on Hindu cosmology, we will explore how there are parallels between the modern physics and cosmological theories and what our ancient Darshana Shastras of Maharshi Kapil and Maharshi Karnad, they have to say. So then we will also look into examples of what modern physicists have noticed in Hindu teachings, like Carl Sagan. He has said that it's the only religion where the universe is reborn and it dies an infinite number of times. And so in science, we have something called the pulsating universe theory. Then the Hindu scriptures also talk about, the explosion of the Brahman. That's like the Big Bang theory of modern science. So we will look into these parallels because when you are talking to, knowledgeable teenagers, it is very important for you to emphasize how this framework that our Rishi Munis created is paralleled in modern science. So our Dharma, it might not speak the same language as modern science, but the framework is very, very similar. So the other topic that we will discuss is who am I? And in certain traditions, you study that we are sinners. And, even in child psychology, they say that if you want to teach a child to be better, you don't focus on the negatives, you always focus on the positives. And that is the whole methodology of Hindu spirituality. Hindu Dharma does not tell us that we are papi, that we are evil. It always teaches us that we are a spark of the divine. And our journey to liberation is realizing that we are none but divine in nature. So, so the whole philosophy of who am I and where I need to get is based on that positive philosophy, which is very, again, consistent with what our modern psychology teaches us, what good parenting is. So that's how Rishi Munis were. They did not dwell on the negative, they focused on the positive. The third lesson that we will actually cover is actually a very good framework. A lot of people, and I know people personally in my life who are very successful, but they feel that they have a vacuum, that they need to find a purpose in their life. And so Hindu Dharma provides a very good framework of what our goals and purpose should be so that we live a full life. It does not say that wealth is evil. It does not say that a rich man is necessarily bad. It doesn't say that you are being materialistic if you want to aspire for admission into Harvard. But different stages of life have different priorities, and different kinds of people have different preferences. So this is that framework of the 4 goals of one's life that helps us live a very balanced and a very wholesome life. And so we will talk about that, and we will compare it to, there are modern theories, like there's a theory called Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy of needs. So we will look into these modern theories and compare them to our traditional formulations. And so when you're teaching your students, if you're combining the ancient wisdom with these modern modules and modern models, and show them the parallel, they automatically understand how scientifically our whole tradition is structured. So then there will be another lesson on the blueprint for our life. Here in the and then you have to constantly relate it to how people live here in the United States versus how people live here, in ancient India or in the traditional Hindu society. So for example, here it is pretty common for someone who's married with children to suddenly go back to college. And that's kind of a disservice to your family. It's good, you're taking a second chance. But one thing to emphasize, as all Indian parents want to emphasize, is that, dear son and daughter, focus on your education right now. So, and when you are an adult, there are different things you should focus on. So through this model of the 4 ashramas or 4 stages of life, what we want to teach our students is, why did our rishis and munis divide the life into 4 different stages? What are the pros and cons? Is that model even applicable in modern lifestyle or not? A big red herring is the caste system, the Varna and Jati system. So here again, the module that we have, look at what our tradition, what our Shastras actually say. And what does Bhagwan Krishna say about Varna and Jati? What do the Upanishads say? If Hindu Dharma was solely the invention of the Brahmin community, who are 3 to 4%, and if all the 97% of us are foolish in following them, then the joke is on us, right? So when I give temple tours to visitors, I give them examples of our rishis, munis, our sants, sadhus, mahatmas, who were like potters, who were woodcutters, who were fishermen. And I tell them that if Hinduism had such a narrow base that only the 3% or 4% of the Brahmin population had contributed everything, then it could have never ever become the 3rd largest tradition in the world. And in olden times, it was probably the largest community. So in this unit, we will look at how all the different communities of the Hindu society have contributed to who we are. I mean, look at me, I'm an Agarwal, so I was born in a Vaishya family. And if you follow the Shastras, since I have not had my Janayu done even before my wedding, I'm theoretically a Shudra. So, but here you are, a lot of you who have, names like Dubes and Tiwaris and Sharmas and Raos sitting, and, we're discussing about Dharma. So that's the, what the perception is very different from reality. We will look at some universal values of Hinduism and compare and contrast them to what the other religions have to say about these same values. For example, love, kindness, and compassion are taught in all religions, but there is a spin that Hindu Dharma gives to these values. And so we'll look at those differences. And then, of course, we will look at the doctrine of karma. and explore how it makes the most sense to explain why life sometimes seems unjust, but it's actually pretty fair. Uh, Kids have a lot of questions, why do we forget what we have done, and why should I pay for something that I don't even remember having done? So I invoke modern psychological theories on how there is actually a mental issue where people remember each and every day of their life and how it's actually a very painful life for them. So we look at how making the right choices makes who we are. And then this section on rebirth and reincarnation tends to be very interesting. When I've had classes in live, with students, I have invited physicians who describe to the students how death is not an event, it's a process. And we also look into a lot of the data from the recent, neurosciences, and we look at research that's been done, which strongly indicates that rebirth is a fact. So one thing I remember from the first time I taught about rebirth versus, the Day of Judgment, that student went and told his mother, and the mother then called me up. And she said, my son told me that I will never ever convert out of Hinduism into a religion which says that there is only one life and then there is death after that and then eternal heaven or hell, because that just does not make any sense to me. So this one uh, tradition of belief in punarjan, rebirth after we are born, is something that distinguishes the dharmic traditions apart from the Abrahamic traditions. And so we look into how this belief has spread across the world, and it's becoming more and more popular. So then we will also, people ask questions, why should I waste money at the mandir? Why should I even go to the temple? What is the use of meditation? I've even heard a comment saying that people who meditate are lazy because they don't want to do anything. Some people say that, why should I worship Bhagwan in a he's present everywhere? So, and the answer is that if you don't want to do this, you do that. If you don't want to do that, you do this. Hinduism is a religion. It's like a giant buffet. If you don't like broccoli, you take up green beans. And if you don't like green beans, you take up something. But don't fill your plate only with one dish. You have to have a selection so that your body can get all the nutrients. So within each of these modules, Hindu Dharma provides us with many, many different choices. If you are a very social person, then the satsang might be beneficial for you. If you are a very introverted person, then maybe meditation or maybe quiet chanting. So what this does is that, in every class, the teenagers are of very different temperaments, and it helps them understand that they cannot be put on a guilt trip by telling them that you have to go to the temple, because they understand that, okay, temple is important for many different reasons, but there are other ways of relating to Bhagwan as well. We talk a lot about the festivals, and like I mentioned that we have teenagers help us organize some festivals like Holi and Navaratri. And then we also talk about the different sanskaras, the ceremony, the rites of passage that we do throughout the life. This, by the way, is my own wedding picture. And then we talk about we do a comparison between cremation and burial. We sometimes even do a mock wedding in our class where, I try to explain to them the significance of major, because a lot of people say that, a wedding ceremony is a waste, but when they understand the significance of each and every step, then they're totally in with it. And then, there's this music and art traditions, and I'll probably have Neeraj or some other, maybe Monaji can talk to that. Then there's a big section going to be on the ways to moksha. Again, Hindu Dharma is a tradition of choice. And so I talk to the students how Hindu Dharma allows different options, and there is no judgment. People can choose what suits them. We talk about Hindu architecture. These different, the gifts is something we will talk about next time. Now, I'll just jump to the last slide. And, we have some symbols here. But if somebody wants to, wants a one-line answer of what does Hindu Dharma mean to you? Again, like I've quoted Swami Vivekananda, I've quoted other sons here. And I thought that Swami Narayan Sampraday's Pramukh Swamiji gave a very nice answer. The original is in the Gujarati language. But he said that Dharma is that which transforms one mentally from an animal into being a true human in the true sense of the word. And then it also shows him the path to reach the divine. So if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan Krishna says that at any point of time, there are three things that you must never give up. And they are really the crux of what's the diet of our dharma. So D for Dan, Y for Yajna, and T for Tapas. And Yajna means living a spiritual and worshipful life, which defines a relationship with the divine. Tapas means hard work and do things which purify our mind, our speech, and our physical self. And Dan means share what we have with others. So, so if somebody asks you, what's the one sentence definition of Hindu Dharma, you can say, it's our tradition teaches us that Dharma is what transforms us to being a human being. What helps us to elevate ourselves from an animal existence, and then how we can reach God or the divine through that. So I think we are already over time, but at this point of time, I think there is one question in the chat. And if anybody has any questions, they can ask me right now.
Let me ask you, sorry.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so around slide 36 or so, there was something that struck as new to me. I saw the word Dvij, and then you had the three Varnas listed, Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. And my understanding was just the Brahmans are called Dvij. So I just wanted you to further elaborate on that if I caught it correctly.
Yeah, so the word Dvija is used, it really means everybody who's had the second birth through the Upanayan Sanskar. But its restrictive meaning is, Brahman. So from the context, you can, when you just use the word Dvija, it's like the Rudi, the meaning by tradition. But the etymological meaning is, it covers all the three Varnas who've undergone the Upanayan ceremony. So by tradition, it's restricted to Brahman, but it can cover all the three Varnas. Any other question? We've gone over time.
Hey Vishalji, this is Rohan here. First of all, I would like to thank you for this session. It's a very good initiative. I just have one question on the earlier point someone made. So there are a lot of parallels, manifestations, symbolism in Hindu practice, right? So, and that's, I see, a biggest challenge when you are basically working with teenagers. So are you thinking of focusing one of those sessions, upcoming
Yes.
sessions,
So
on that specifically?
Yeah, when we talk about the divinity in Hindu Dharma and the major manifestations, then that's where we would look at the symbolic meaning and why our different Devi Devtas have these supernatural forms. So we will certainly cover that, and a lot of that would be self-study also. So I'll be pointing you to different resources.
Okay.
Our temple has devised, we've created a whole web page actually explaining the symbolism of, I think, about 24 Devi Devtas. So I'll send you a link for that too.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Namaskar Vishalji, this is Rajaram. Right now I'm not in a position to put my video. Next week I will. Thank you very much for this session. I've been teaching Hindu Dharma at our local temple for 15 years. Your curriculum, my curriculum, I should say, parallels a little bit of yours. So therefore it's going to give me a lot more information for my students. So I want to first of all, thank you for this session.
You're
so
most
that I'm not remiss on that. Number two, when you have an opportunity, is there any way we could get in touch with you one-on-one, or is that not possible?
Oh, it is certainly possible, and I apologize. I should have shared my contact information. I'm not a secretive person, so maybe I should type my phone number in the chat box here, and let me type here.
Vishalji, thank you. Give
While
me your
he is typing, is very resourceful, very amiable
ID,
and amicable
ID,
person.
You can
mail ID also. You can
send
furnish.
me a text. Please just don't call me before 5:30 in the evening, because then I'm at work. But I'll try my best to answer whatever questions or even exchange ideas. So I
That's
think
totally understandable.
Yeah,
I mean, like, reach
Vishalji,
me to speak
go ahead,
to.
please.
all right. So I think we need to do the closing prayers now, because we are running out of time.
Yeah, great session, Vishalji. But one recommendation: can we limit the discussions towards the end, so
Yes.
that we can completely focus on the
This was
context?
an exception. This was actually an exception. So in the future, discussions will be only in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I appreciate.
All right.
Also, Vishalji, one suggestion that I saw in the chat box, that after 9:15 formal session, people whosoever want to, they can stay longer, 10-15 minutes more if you allow the Zoom, and then they can discuss among themselves. And you can stay on also. That's what I saw. I like that too. Mhm.
Yeah, they can, provided I'm also available, because every night I call my mother. So I need to talk to her also. But let's say the closing prayers now. I'm sharing my screen. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Om sarve
Om sarve
sarve santu niramayaha sarve bhadrani bhavet त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः. Well, thank you everyone for your participation, and we'll be loading up a lot of reference material and a recording of this class for all of you. And next week we will be discussing the contributions that Hindus have given to the human society, human civilization in general. If you have any questions, I've sent you my telephone number. You can send me a text, or you can, here's an email would be better. So I'm going to type that in the chat box here.
You said you sent your phone number. Where did you send it to?
In the chat box. Oh, I think it just went to one person.
Yeah, we couldn't see.
Yeah, we didn't receive it.
Yeah, that's what I.
To everyone.
You are there in the
Thank you
WhatsApp.
so much for a lovely session. Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
waiting for your number.
I've sent my email and my phone number. Email is preferred or text is preferred. So thank you very much, and hope to see you all back next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Vishalji.
Bye-bye.